Hi everybody, this is Lynn Hayes. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to talk about the astrological influences starting March 25th and continuing for this week. And there's a lot to talk about. I will try to keep it moving pretty well without rambling too much, but there is a lot to talk about. So over the last few weeks, if you're new to this channel, I'm posting astrological updates every week or so. So if you've missed any, you might want to go back and take a look. Mercury is retrograde right now. Many of you already know that. And I'll post a link to the video for that episode. When Mercury is retrograde, often it can be more difficult to communicate clearly. Sometimes machine equipment has difficulty functioning. We can have to go back and renegotiate decisions that we've already made or agreements that have already been put in place. I do want to say I did buy a new TV. I sort of challenged myself. It was on sale, $700 off, so I thought that was worth taking the risk. So I did order the TV. The TV arrived, no problems. We set it up, everything is working. So a lot of times people are just terrified of Mercury retrograde. What's going to happen? I have to start a new job. And I always say, you know, just do what you can and expect that there could be problems. They don't always happen. It's not a catastrophe. But we do have Mercury retrograde, and Mercury is in Pisces, which is the sign of creativity and imagination. It's not a very good sign for details and organization. So when Mercury is in Pisces, which it will be for quite a while, because Mercury is retrograding back through Pisces, and then it's going to turn direct on the 28th, and then it'll start moving forward again. And it'll be in Pisces throughout that time. It will also be conjunct Neptune. Neptune moves very slowly. So because Mercury is slowing down as it prepares to turn direct this week, it's moving in tandem with Neptune within 1.5 degrees. And then it's going to get tighter and tighter. And then it will actually be traveling with Neptune until April 4th. So when Mercury is in Pisces and conjunct Neptune, which is the modern ruler of Pisces, there's a lot of this sort of misty energy, very creative and imaginative and hopeful and idealistic. There's a lot of wonderful magic with Pisces and Neptune. And I want to be careful not to make Pisces and Neptune seem like the same thing. They're really not. The signs are very different than the planets, but the energies that are created are very similar. So that's a whole other topic for another time. But for now, just know that this is not an ideal time to make business decisions or major life decisions that need a lot of grounded practicality. It's a wonderful time to imagine, to sort of envision what your life can be like if you follow a certain path. It's a wonderful time for meditation and for music and for art and for being in nature, for having transcendent experiences. For that, this is the ideal time. For business, maybe wait until after, certainly after the 30th of March. And if you can wait until that first week, until after Mercury and Neptune have separated, you'll be a little better off. Venus has been traveling through Aquarius, where it's been more detached, more sort of universal love, and less to do with the personal. Venus is going to be moving into the sign of Pisces on the 26th, where it's going to sort of add to the luminous, magical, mystical idealism that we already have going on with Mercury and Neptune. So, especially on the 27th, watch for potential issues with relationships where things are confusing, and maybe that makes something suddenly erupt, but it's just for a day or so. That would not be a good time to play the lottery or to invest in stocks because things are too volatile on the 27th. Let's say the 26th and the 27th. Then on the 28th, we have Mercury turning direct. And then on the 30th, Mars moves into the sign of Gemini. So I'll be talking more about that. Mars has been in Taurus, which is very fixed. It's very difficult. So Mars is the planet of our drive and our desire. It shows how we go about getting what we want, the kinds of things we want. And this is happening on a global level. So this will be affecting your chart in certain individual ways. But Mars is in Taurus right now for everybody and has been for about 5 or 6 weeks. So with Mars in Taurus, there does seem to be difficulty kind of getting things moving. Taurus is very stable, very solid, very reliable, but doesn't really like change. And then we've had Mercury Retrograde, which tends to urge us to look backwards instead of forwards. So with Mars going into Gemini, well, I imagine that especially with Mercury turning direct on the 28th, Mars moves into Gemini, which is much, Gemini moves much more quickly, wants to make decisions quickly, wants to have discussions quickly. Everything is much faster with Mars and Gemini. So I think we're going to start to see a real picking up of the patterns of energy around us. So the other thing that I want to just mention quickly, Saturn and Pluto are kind of the heavy hitters of the planets. Before Pluto was discovered in 1930, Saturn was the planet of death. Pluto has taken on that role in other dimensions. Saturn was the planet of death in terms of death being our fate. But Pluto is the planet of death in terms of fate, but also all these other layers of experience, in terms of surrender, in terms of transformation, in terms of the death of something and the rebirth of something else. We didn't have that sort of imagery when Saturn was in charge of death. So this is death in a metaphorical sense. It's not death in a literal sense, always, or even often. But when Saturn is the planet of restriction and discipline and hard work and practicality, Saturn's job is to make sure that we don't do stupid things, essentially. Saturn, when it's affecting our own personal lives, tends to force us into situations where we're going to have to work hard, where things may be more difficult, but where we're building something for the future. Pluto, as I said, is more the sort of transformational process where we have to start letting go of certain things so that we can continue to grow. So when Saturn and Pluto interact in the sky, they tend to be pretty significant events. So Saturn and Pluto are going to be conjunct, meaning working as a team. They're going to be, their energies will be fused starting in January of 2020. But they are within 3 degrees now. They're going to be moving closer and closer. So between now and July, they'll be between 2 and 3 degrees apart, where they're definitely starting to interact. And this is something I predicted when I did my astrology of 2019 talk, that in terms of the financial markets, there was going to be a lot of exuberance. And once Saturn and Pluto came together, reality was going to set in, and we are starting to see some of that. So this is a time to tighten your belt, be more practical. This is not so much a time for dreaming, even though we have all this Pisces Neptune. But this is going to be sort of the first inkling that we have of what Saturn and Pluto are likely to do when they come together in January. So I hope that's been helpful for you. I hope it's been interesting. Please feel free to follow me on Facebook. I'm going to link the website and some other information in the description box. I really appreciate your joining me. If you like what you're seeing, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you'll be notified of new videos when they come out. So thanks again. Have a wonderful week.